Futures trading involves risk and is not suitable for all investors. Content provided in this segment is meant for educational purposes and is not a solicitation to buy or sell commodities.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Tech Talk. It is March 23, 2023. I am Cody. With me, Mr. Andy Fallman. Andy, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well, man. I'm doing well. We got a quick little show for the folks today.
Is it 23 of 23? Was that what I heard?
Did you hear me almost mess that one completely up?
I did.
I fumbled through it pretty hard.
Well, I'd say that's, a good chunk of your life. So mine too, though. Mine too. I fumble through.
Hey,
I don't know.
Tough crowd up there today, folks.
It is a tough crowd. Man.
Well, hey, good news is, out of the three charts that we have today, we have one that came at request from our good friend Mark in Michigan. But to start out, we got probably the talk of the town here. Well, April Class 3.
April Class 3. Wow. This thing has just been on fire. It's added over $2.
Yeah.
In less than 2 weeks. What do you want to do here? What's the plan? What's the hammer doing?
Well, I think if you look at it, we filled one gap today at 1989, and I believe our good friend Owen Feenstra kindly reminded us the next gap is about $20.10, which is very plausible for tomorrow.
$20, and so you talking about this one right here?
Yes, sir.
Wow, look at that.
And then if you look above there, we got another little gap-a-rooski at $20.25. So you're asking me what I want to do with it. I am not quite a seller just yet. I do believe that there is going to be a time and a date for that. But right now, I do believe April Class 3 is a buy.
Wow, the hammer just right out of the gate. First chart.
We're coming in strong, folks.
First chart, first week of spring, hammering. Let's go.
Just rocking and rolling.
Just rocking and rolling. This strong like bull, man. It cleared the 200-day moving average. That's strong, right? And didn't we just get a cold storage report?
We did. Just came out.
And I'm pretty sure Ever.Ag Insights, if you look at the big bold letter, what did it say? Or big bold word, what did it say?
Bullish.
Your favorite word in the English dictionary.
Good night.
Bull, bullish, up.
So
green, big.
Looking strong.
So, yeah, clearing the 200-day moving average today, that was strong. We're still at discount, I think. Talk to Joe Schmidt about that one and Basis Loaded. You'll learn more because I do believe we've got about a week under our belts for April after tomorrow. Today's Thursday.
That's correct.
But yeah, no, it touched this gap. What's interesting is that it tried to sell off this afternoon, right? Let's just look at this bad boy. We don't really do this that often. A little intraday chart for you.
There you go.
So this was cash, right? This should look familiar. And then it tried to sell off, and it's perked itself right back up. And so what I think is interesting is that this is intraday, it's just 5 minutes, but you've got a higher low that's formed. So this 1990, this 85 and 90 area, that's only a nickel, right? But you clear that area, it starts to get aggressive again, but it's also too on a ton of volume. The volume here has been outstanding.
Yeah.
It seems like every other day we get that close to 1,000 contracts.
Yeah. And then last week we traded over 1,300, I think.
Yeah.
April's just been outstanding. It's just been phenomenal so far.
Outstanding. It's like, who's your favorite basketball team?
Michigan State Spartans.
What's that in the background right there?
We'll get to that in a second. We got a little bet with Jake Kingsley from the Feeds team. And,
we'll get to that one in a second.
We'll round out the episode of that because I got some things to say.
All right. I need to look out. All right. Well, so the hammer wants to buy it. Like the chart cleared the 200-day. I think that's important. Fill this gap. You're looking at the next gap, just over $20. I think this price here too is important. This acted as a pretty major area of resistance. Mm-hmm. That's $20.38. Yeah. Not that far away. You could call that current cash if you want to add enough premium into it, right? I've got current cash in 1980 with no premiums. So start adding 4 or 5 cents. It's anchored by a week's worth of pricing, but you're not really seeing anything in the last, call it week and a half that says you want to sell this. I think, conversely, what would make you want to sell something here? I think you need to see a complete engulfment of one of these big candles.
Yeah.
Right. I think you need to see something where it's like you have this big, a candle kind of like this or something like that, where you have the preceding one is an up day and then the subsequent next day completely engulfs it to the downside. So, but yeah, I mean, until you see something like that, it's strong like bull. And while I got you, let's just take a quick peek. I know we said 3 charts, but let's make it 4. Yeah, I mean, this is a cheese average. So, at $2, it's basically right there again.
Right.
So this is a price where we met with a ton of resistance. So it's kind of do or die time for cheese too, huh?
100%. 100% agree with you.
But what's this right here that's creeping up?
Get another little gap in cheese there, my friend.
Little gapper.
Is that 205?
206 is where that bad boy ends. So that's another nickel from here on average. 10 cents in one or a nickel in both.
Right.
That seems attainable given the way they've been buying cheese and given the way futures have been trading.
It's not out of the realm at all.
So look out. But yeah, I think crossing this 200 days is important. And I think if we fail to maintain over that, I think that's where you could start to see an acceleration back down. But it just doesn't feel like that, given all like today's cold storage report, given the volume that we've seen, given the price action, what we're looking at cash. We'll see. I don't know. Cody's a buyer. We're buying it.
Buying.
What's the next chart? Meal?
Next one. Yep. Our good friend Mark from Michigan wants to see a little soybean meal. July soybean.
July meal. Oh, man. This thing's been just blasted by just got blasted. I can't shoot it now, which I shot it 2 weeks ago.
I know. This thing is wild. I guess what really interests me is where we settled out today and we bounced off that 435 type number that's been a huge mark of support for the past how many months?
Hold on a second there, Professor. Can we actually say we bounced off of 435? It sure doesn't look like it. Hang on.
Oof. You are right. 433.5.
Today's settlement, 435 and a half.
No, 434.
No, I'm sorry. 434 and a half. What am I talking about?
Yeah.
You closed through it. I think, so what's this low right here? These wicks. This low is 433 and a half. I think if you get a close, like another open then close lower from here. I mean, that's just like, now I think it's a straight shot at the 200 day, which is more like 420.
I mean, I was going to say, at that point, you're talking 420, 400, right?
Yeah. No, and then you mentioned 400 too. That's a good point because look where this bad boy broke out from. You could it's full. This thing looks like it's very capable of retracing this entire move. Right.
Yeah. Take where it broke out from, pretty much turn it on its head. And that's kind of what we're seeing right now. Instead of the breakout to the upside, you're just seeing this thing collapse all the way on top of itself.
Yeah. No, I mean, this is pretty wicked. Something I've been doing a little reading about that I'll share with all of our loyal fans and you too. What's interesting about this is what does the momentum look like here? Yikes. So momentum is basically like the acceleration of the move. So like the close minus the previous day's close kind of thing.
Okay.
So when it crosses like 0, you're starting to now get to where like the previous, like if you look at, I think this one looks at the last 12 periods. So in this case, last 12 days. But once like this close starts to, the difference in price is the price change. Rate of change. Once it crosses this 0 line, that's typically like a pretty good indication that you've moved from higher to lower. In this case, you're starting to get more acceleration down.
Okay.
Right. Whereas like here, where's a good one? Here, this would suggest like you'd want to be looking at buying it. Here, this is starting to suggest that the momentum's getting a little overbought. But I guess my point is that the momentum is starting to get pretty aggressive. So we're already at minus 40, and it kind of makes me think that once you get down to this like 420 area, you start to see it somewhat of like a reversion to the mean, which would be reversion to 0. But that doesn't mean that futures need to go up necessarily. That maybe you run into a period of consolidation where that over that next, like call it 12 periods, you have a consolidation. But I think it's interesting that you had this cross in the momentum at 0 right here, and it really started to fall apart. So something to be mindful of. Not a little tidbit for everybody. A little momentum. What's the momentum doing? Let's take, you know what? Hang on. Not to backtrack. Where did it cross it at? Yeah. So it crossed 0 right here for April milk. Yikes. So
which is now we're getting into the positives.
Correct. So we were just looking at July. Sorry about that. Okay. So I guess what that tells me is you're starting to get to some extremes, and like, the price action, like right here, becomes, it's telling you that the price action is becoming like difficult to sustain. So not to say that we need to roll over and go lower, or in this case go lower, but here, if you start to get into like a 60 in the north of, or I guess I should say south of -40, so like negative 40, -50, -60, that starts to get like very difficult to sustain day to day. So I think what ends up happening is it runs right into this 200 day and runs out of gas and starts trading sideways.
Interesting. Okay, so from here, with what you just mentioned, and thank you for showing us that, because I don't think we've ever looked at momentum before.
We've never looked at momentum. I don't think so. Maybe.
That's fantastic. With what you just went through and what you said, what would you do with this?
So, well, it's easy to say it now, right? But when you start to see these crosses from like positive to negative,
mm-hmm.
that's an indication that the sellers are starting to gain control. So it's a good confirmation of like, if you're looking to be a seller, the momentum is telling you to be a seller. Yep. Conversely, too, when you start to get to these extremes, what it's saying is that you have to maintain that level of price that like it's unsustainable price action, I guess is my point.
Well, we're not quite there yet, correct? If I'm reading this right,
it doesn't appear that way here, but it's getting close. That's why when I look at, like I said, when I look at this, where this is starting to creep up towards this 200 day, assuming we get there in a very short amount of time, let's say we get there by, I don't know, Monday, like that's where I think this momentum just gets to be too much, and you start to see some consolidation, and then it goes back to closer. I mean, it gets somewhat mean reverting back to zero.
Okay, gotcha.
But like I said, does that mean if we go back to zero that we're just going to rip higher? Not necessarily. It just means that we may run into some consolidation. But I think the momentum, I've been watching momentum more, and I think it's really worth noting as a nice way to confirm price action or like a breakout in the chart, right? Because here you started to get some weakness that was not being kind of supplemented by, or I should say, like if you wanted to look at like this kind of like a longer term like upward trend, right? You
so
broke out.
Broke that upward trend is when it really started to accelerate.
Yeah, you broke that upward trend, right? But then look what happened with the momentum. It crossed zero and started to go negative. That momentum key, I guess, is my point. Is it's a really good indicator of, in this case, the bears taking over, going from positive to negative, crossing to zero.
Okay.
Cross to zero. So you learned something there, Cody.
Here we go. We're learning.
Thanks again, Mark from Michigan. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
That's where you live.
We're pretty much neighbors.
You guys are neighbors. Did I tell you I was born in Michigan?
You did. All great people are from Michigan.
Really?
I've come to that conclusion.
All right. Pretty sure Paige is from Michigan. Paige doesn't say anything. Or she says some affiliates. Shout out. I'm from like right here, I think. I don't know. Anyways, nat gas. What do you want to do with some nat gas here?
Oh, boy. I think I'm going to be a seller of nat gas.
You're a seller.
I think I'm going to be a seller of nat gas. What makes me nervous is we've been down here before. We kind of bounced off and headed back to that $3 type range. But look how much we've had fallen apart in the middle of December. And then we just kind of, in a wave, kind of bounced around sideways here. And the chart's not looking fantastic. I mean,
this is a widowmaker. I would say the only thing that bothers me about being a seller here is that you've got, if you kind of like, what's the kind of the idea that you'd fan out different trends, right? And so here's like the most extreme. And then you kind of look at it a little bit longer term, right? Yep. You're starting to see some, I guess, slowing down, and look at what the momentum did too. That's a nice indicator that like we were really, it was just accelerating so much. And then it got to zero right here, and you had that kind of V bottom. So I guess my point is that you're starting to see some kind of indications that things are slowing down on this break. And the question is, do you get new, this is, I think, the biggest, it's got to do or die time for this thing right here, right? I mean, if you go off this low,
exactly.
Look at where we settle, right up against it. I think if you get like a candle that kind of looks like this one right there tomorrow, then absolutely you should be you stay short or, new shorts, right? This candle right here, plop that right there. That'd be wicked. But I think I'd say I think you have to wait for that confirmation if you have no position on, because this is starting to look like it's trying to carve out a bottom. The momentum is certainly suggesting that.
So if it's you, nat gas, you're more of a buyer on the buy side of this nat gas.
I'm not saying I'm a buyer. I'm just saying like you're like all bucked up about like it's time to sell. Like get the bearish bazooka out and blast this thing, which we can if you. I mean, I just like shooting. Like I like blasting stuff. Like if you want me to shoot, I will. I will do that. But I'm not saying for this chart that you need to be doing that, just because I think you need to get the confirmation. This is acting like, look what happened last time. You V bottomed out of here last time. That's like, this is a price the market doesn't like to sit still at. So yeah, if you got a candle like right here, this guy right here tomorrow, then yeah, I think this thing gets blasted again. Let's take a peek at the monthly. I mean, some of the stuff is starting to bump.
I just looked at the monthly and it's very
it's bumping up against some pretty long-term support again.
It is.
It's getting close. Yeah, I think if you're selling it before without the confirmation that we just looked at, I wouldn't do it. But you know what? That's just me.
You'd be a little ahead of your time, is what you're saying.
Like I said, I'd like to see the confirmation. I'd like to see a candle like this tomorrow settles through this, negates this V bottom. Because I guess conversely, think about it this way. Let's say we get another bounce, right? Anybody that was short is now looking at that and saying like, it's not as fun anymore, right?
Right.
And now there's more risk of like, let's say you start to materially retrace this move. What does that look like? When you're talking about getting back up into here.
Right. Okay.
So I think that's starting to be at risk.
Okay.
Yikes.
Oof.
I don't know. I'm not going to be blasting. We're not blasting. We're not doing it. No
Not
charge going to get blasted.
Not taking the bazooka out just yet.
Not taking the bazooka out, but that doesn't mean we can't like fire one off at the side of at the door anyways.
Well, I mean,
this thing is fun to shoot. Like I will admit, I do enjoy shooting this thing.
We could tell.
So we'll find one. It's funny.
We appreciate you showing us the momentum chart today. I had never seen that, and that's something that we have never brought up on here before. So.
Add it to your indicators. Come on.
I'm going to put it on there.
You know what we could do is just draw a big M on your head.
For Michigan State. By the way, let's get back to this real fast. So, for everybody watching at home, my Michigan State Spartans take on Jake Kingsley's Kansas State House Cats tonight in the March Madness brackets. I graduated from Michigan State, an esteemed college. Jake went to Kansas State, allegedly. We don't know. There's no proof. It is what it is. We got to take his word for it. So, the wager between us, gentlemen, is if Michigan State wins, Jake is going to wear some green and white on the next grain feed piece. Feed for the Feed Foundation team.
Okay.
And if Kansas State happens to win, doubt it. Anyway, I've got to wear a Kansas State purple shirt, jersey. I don't know what they call them down south, whatever it is. So, in about 2 weeks, we're going to know, everybody at home is going to know who the winner of that is. You're going to know tonight. Check it out. Michigan State will take on Kansas State, 6:30 Eastern time. Make sure.
What's the score going to be?
Cool. I think the over, what is it right now? 135. So I'm going to say Michigan State 89, Kansas State 76.
Got it. And that's not a guess. That's what it's going to be.
Guess. That ain't no guess. That's what it's going to be.
That's what it's going to be. We have Tom Izzo. I mean, you can't not win with Tom Izzo. Let's go.
Okay.
I'm just saying. So I just had to get that off my chest. It's been bothering me for a while today, but now
I had to get that off your chest. It's bothered you.
I've aired my grievances. So, with that being said, everybody at home, we appreciate you watching. Mark, we appreciate the email in wanting to look at soybean meal. Jake, we kind of appreciate you. Anyway, Andy, thank you for showing us the charts. And with that, everybody, we will see you next week on Tech Talk. Have a great weekend.
Go Spartans, I guess.